I want to talk to you about a quiet kind of existential dread you've probably felt creeping in recently.
Oh, absolutely. The one nobody really wants to admit to.
Right. You might not have said it out loud to your colleagues or, even to yourself, but it is definitely sitting there in the back of your mind.
Yeah, it's that highly specific moment at your desk.
Exactly. You're sitting there, you type a prompt into a chat box, and suddenly you're just staring at the screen in total disbelief.
Because, I mean, if we're being completely honest here,
Yeah.
if ChatGPT can produce a passable, highly structured business strategy in like 20 seconds,
Mm-hmm.
where does that actually leave your hard-earned expertise?
It's terrifying.
It is. If a machine can instantly generate a framework that used to take you 3 days of intense head-scratching thought, are you suddenly obsolete?
It is a remarkably heavy question. And honestly, it's the exact reason that feeling of dread is just echoing through boardrooms, home offices, and corporate Slack channels everywhere right now.
Yeah. You have professionals looking at their 2 to 3 decades of accumulated experience, right? The late nights, their strategic pivots, the hard-won victories, and they're wondering if all of that human effort has just been reduced to a statistical pattern-matching game on a server farm.
And that is the absolute core of our mission for this deep dive today. We're exploring the insights from an upcoming book called You, Me, and Chat GPT by Julie Creffield.
Yes, such an incredible read.
Truly. We are going to unpack the mechanics of why artificial intelligence is triggering this massive identity crisis among experienced professionals.
Which is so needed right now.
But more importantly, we're going to look at the concrete frameworks you need to secure your future relevance. Because let's face it, burying your head in the sand is no longer a viable career strategy.
No, it's really not. And the tone of this material is crucial to highlight right out of the gate.
Oh, for sure.
If you're tuning in expecting some dry, sanitized tech bro manual about maximizing your workflow with 50 obscure browser extensions, you're in the wrong place.
Definitely the wrong place.
Yeah. The sources we're looking at today are drenched in raw honesty, serious East London grit, and a deeply no-nonsense kind of humor.
Yeah, I mean, the author has survived 5 corporate redundancies, a brush with near bankruptcy, and built a global business entirely from scratch as a single mom.
Exactly. She is not some theoretical futurist sitting in a sterile lab. She's someone who has lived through massive, disruptive technological shifts and possesses the actual scar tissue to prove it.
Okay, let's unpack this. I want to go back to the fundamental shift the author describes as the day the machine started talking back.
Right.
I'm looking at this landscape, and it seems like the people panicking the most aren't the entry-level workers, but the seasoned veterans. Why are experienced professionals uniquely terrified by this specific wave of AI?
Well, the panic is actually a misdirection. People think they're afraid of the underlying technology,
Yeah.
the neural networks, the
Rubber
parameter.
jargon.
Right. But what is truly unsettling people is the speed. It's the sudden, violent collapse of time between effort and output.
Wow, yeah, that collapse of time.
To understand why this hits a seasoned professional so hard, you really have to look at how deep expertise is historically built. The author paints this incredibly vivid, almost cinematic picture of herself back in the year 2000.
Uh-huh.
She's standing outside the University of East London's Docklands campus, and she can literally smell the Becton sewer works wafting through the air.
A highly glamorous origin story for a 30-year career in tech innovation, right?
Right. I mean, it is about as far from Silicon Valley as you can get. She's 22 years old, the first person in her entire family to go to further education.
Wow.
She is about to study multimedia design, yet she doesn't even own a laptop.
In the year 2000.
Yeah. Her primary piece of technology is a chunky Nokia 3210, which she openly admits she mostly uses to play the game Snake.
I loved that game.
We all did. And she's surviving on shifts at a local bar and navigating life with a dodgy boyfriend who sells pills at warehouse parties. I mean, she built her career from absolute zero.
It's all just pure grit.
Exactly. It took decades of painful trial and error, spectacular failed projects, and lessons learned the hardest way possible. Her expertise is layered, complex, and deeply earned.
And that perfectly illustrates the core conflict here. For
Yeah.
generations, professionals built their inherent value on the friction of thinking.
Yes.
The friction.
I was really struck by her analogy of typing on an old, stiff mechanical typewriter. Every single letter required actual physical force.
Right, you had to commit to the key.
Yeah, when you finished a page, you had literally wrestled it into existence. The friction of the process left physical and mental marks on you.
It was an effort.
But today, AI simply bypasses all of that friction. It generates a comprehensive summary or a strategic framework instantly. When something that took you 20 years of struggle to master can be mimicked by a language model in 20 seconds, it fundamentally challenges the meaning of the knowledge you've accumulated.
It forces a total crisis of identity. You're left asking, well, if I no longer need to exert cognitive effort to produce this document, does my presence in this office still matter? Right. I want to introduce a slightly creepy analogy she uses from her childhood in 1987 to see how you interpret this.
Oh, the doll.
Yes, the AI toy doll named Julie. It was this blonde, slightly unnerving plastic doll with pre-programmed responses. You would say a specific recognized phrase, and the doll would spit back a canned response, giving this eerie illusion of an actual conversation.
Super creepy.
So, looking at our modern, vastly more advanced systems, a thought occurs to me. Are we actively directing these new machines, or are they subtly training us?
Oh, that's a great point.
Like, are these models gently conditioning us to just accept average automated thinking because it's fast, easy, and requires zero friction?
That doll is the perfect metaphor for the trap we're falling into. Yeah. If you just trust the button and nod along to whatever generic phrase the machine spits out, you are the one being programmed.
Exactly.
What's fascinating here is AI doesn't actually replace true experts. What it does, ruthlessly, is expose shallow thinking.
Oh, say more about that.
Well, when a machine can instantly generate a perfectly average, highly confident-sounding marketing strategy, it suddenly becomes glaringly obvious who is actually applying critical thought and who is just regurgitating corporate jargon.
Right, it raises the baseline.
Exactly. The real danger isn't the machine taking your job. The fatal danger is you voluntarily outsourcing your own judgment to a server farm in Utah, simply because you accepted that confident-sounding average as good enough.
And because professionals are terrified of looking shallow or falling behind, they are reacting with sheer panic.
Total panic.
They abandon their judgment and fall into what the author brilliantly terms the cycle of doom.
It's the trap of pure tool obsession, and honestly, it is exhausting just to watch.
It really is. Picture this. You log on to LinkedIn on a Tuesday morning, and some influencer claims they replaced their entire department with one hyper-specific prompt.
And the panic sets in immediately.
Right. So you enter the cycle of doom, discover, download, dabble, ditch, and despair.
It's such a vicious cycle.
You discover a flashy new AI tool. You download it immediately. You dabble with it for about 12 minutes between meetings. The output isn't miraculously perfect on the first try, so you ditch it in frustration.
Because it wasn't instant magic.
Exactly. Then you despair that you are hopelessly behind the curve. Next week, you repeat the cycle. Your sheer output of activity goes up. You have 60 browser tabs open, but your actual meaningful progress completely stalls.
Yeah, and to escape that paralyzing cycle, you have to fundamentally change your mental model. You have to stop treating AI adoption like a vertical ladder where you're either winning at the top or failing at the bottom.
Right, it's not a ladder.
No. The sources introduced this crucial framework called the AI adoption dial. It features 5 distinct orientations: the skeptic, the experimenter, the integrator, the expert, and finally the architect.
And the defining characteristic here is that it operates as a dial.
Exactly, a dial you can adjust.
Meaning you can manually adjust your approach depending on the context of the work. You might be an absolute architect when it comes to, say, automating your email routing, building complex rules and systems.
Right.
But you could dial it all the way back to being a skeptic when evaluating an algorithm for employee performance reviews.
Precisely. An integrator might weave a tool into their daily writing tasks, and an expert might optimize the prompts to perfection. But you fluidly move between these states.
It's dynamic.
And I'm so glad you mentioned the skeptic, because the material offers a massive validation for people who naturally default to caution. Currently, skepticism gets a terrible reputation.
Oh, it really does.
If you aren't immediately championing every new generative model, the tech community treats you like a dinosaur. But the author makes a compelling case that skepticism is a vital protective mechanism.
It's entirely rational risk awareness.
Yes.
The sources pull from some fascinating Stanford research highlighting that women in particular are showing high hesitancy to adopt generative AI.
Which is very telling.
The tech bro narrative might frame that as a lack of capability, but the reality is it stems from deep ethical concerns. We are talking about severe data privacy issues and the undeniable fact that these models are predominantly trained on male-skewed, historically biased data.
Exactly.
If you know a facial recognition system has significantly higher error rates for darker-skinned women, or a hiring algorithm actively penalizes resumes containing the word women's, pausing to interrogate the system isn't being a laggard. It's the definition of professional responsibility.
This raises an important question. If the most values-led, critical thinkers in our organizations, the exact people asking the difficult, necessary questions about bias and ethics, choose to simply sit on the sidelines out of caution, who is left shaping the future of these incredibly powerful systems?
Well, it creates a vacuum.
Right.
And that vacuum will inevitably be filled by the people who care the least about those ethical guardrails.
Exactly. The author is essentially grabbing the listener by the shoulders and pleading with them to bring their hard-earned judgment into the arena.
The room where the future cognitive architecture is being built has its doors wide open, and the skeptics need to be inside that room, not outside, protesting the building.
Abstaining entirely just removes your influence. You can be skeptical, but you must be an engaged skeptic.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because we have established that frantically downloading endless tools in the cycle of doom is a dead end.
Complete dead end.
We also know that sitting entirely on the sidelines as a passive skeptic removes your power. So what is the actual solution?
Right, what do we do?
If you're listening to this right now, whether you're a manager, a consultant, or a creative professional, your unstructured organic knowledge is at massive risk of just dissolving into the deafening noise of AI-generated content.
It really is.
Action is not an option anymore. You can control the speed of your dial, but the action itself is mandatory. And I highly recommend picking up the book so you have the actual playbook for this.
Yeah, you really need the full frameworks. But the ultimate destination of that action is to deliberately move your dial toward becoming an architect.
Right.
And we aren't talking about becoming an IT systems architect who writes code. We are talking about becoming an architect of your own cognitive infrastructure.
I love that phrase, cognitive infrastructure.
To really grasp how to do that, we need to examine a concept the author calls the mission model gap.
Okay, so I'm looking at this mission model gap, and it feels a bit like a cruel math problem where your ambition continually outpaces the physical hours in a day. Is this essentially about the hard limits of human bandwidth as you advance in your career?
That is the perfect way to frame it. As you gain experience, your mission, like the scale of what you want to achieve, the number of people you want to impact, the complex ideas you want to execute, grows exponentially.
Right, your goals get bigger.
But your model, which is essentially your human biological capacity, your energy, and your waking hours, hits a brick wall.
Because there are only 24 hours in a day.
Exactly. You cannot manufacture more time. The author lived this reality intensely. She was running a massive global online community called Too Fat to Run, advocating for fitness and health at every size.
A global mission, but a highly constrained local model.
Yes.
Hundreds of thousands of women needed daily support, motivation, and resources. Yet the operational model delivering that support was just her, a single mom sitting in her front room, typing on a sluggish, aging laptop, while simultaneously managing a toddler who constantly needed her attention.
The gap between her massive vision and her physical capacity to execute was just crushing.
So where does AI fit into bridging that?
AI is the bridge across that gap. That's the true magic of this technology for the experienced professional. It's not about using Chat GPT to write your Tuesday update emails 10% faster.
Right, that's just a party trick.
Exactly. It's about actively turning your specific frameworks, your unique methodologies, and even your personal icks, those repetitive tasks that cause you friction and make you procrastinate, into scalable cognitive infrastructure.
Let's make that concrete for the listener. What does building that scaffolding actually look like in practice?
Think of it like creating a digital clone of your own brain's editing checklist. Instead of just opening a chat box and typing a raw, generic prompt like, write a blog post, an architect builds a system.
Okay.
You feed the AI your past successful projects. You upload your specific tone of voice guidelines. You document the exact sequential questions you ask when evaluating a new marketing campaign, and you build those into a custom workflow.
So you're giving it your specific lens.
Yes. You take the unstructured genius floating around in your head and structure it so the machine can run the first 3 miles of the marathon for you, perfectly aligned with your standards. Your ideas can suddenly travel infinitely further than your physical time previously allowed.
That structural advantage is how you prevent your voice from drowning in the AI sea.
Precisely.
The sources detail a framework for this called the EQUAL mixing desk. Imagine you're a sound engineer in a recording studio, standing in front of a massive board of sliders, balancing different audio channels to get the perfect track.
It's a brilliant visual.
Now, we can't give away the whole methodology here. You really do need to buy the book to learn how to actively calibrate this for your own career. But the acronym breaks down the channels you have at your disposal.
Right.
You have sliders for your experience, your qualifications, your unique strengths, your authenticity, and your lived reality.
And the mastery is in the calibration. Anyone can use AI to sound competent now, but an architect knows exactly when to push the slider for their unique strengths up to the maximum, emphasizing a perspective the AI cannot mimic.
Yeah.
They know when to bring their lived reality to the forefront of the mix, injecting the grit of their actual human experiences into a strategy. Conversely, they also know when to hit the mute button on external noise and generic data.
It's about curation.
Establishing real authority requires knowing how to actively mix those human elements with the machine's computational power.
I have to challenge this premise, though. Let's play devil's advocate for a second.
Okay, go for it.
If this book becomes a massive hit and millions of professionals start using AI to scale their own cognitive infrastructure, won't that just create a catastrophic tsunami of perfectly structured, highly articulate, yet entirely soulless corporate noise?
It's a valid fear.
If everyone has a perfectly calibrated mixing desk, how does any single professional actually cut through that volume of content?
They cut through because trust travels.
Trust travels.
Yes, trust is the ultimate antidote to noise. We are entering an era where competent, well-structured content is infinite and functionally free. Therefore, the economic premium shifts entirely a treadable perspective.
Because the machine doesn't have skin in the game.
Exactly. An AI model can effortlessly generate 1,000 plausible ideas for a business pivot, but it cannot decide which of those ideas actually aligns with the moral compass of your company. It does not lose sleep over a bad decision.
Right.
It doesn't take reputational responsibility for the outcome. A human in the loop, someone who brings the raw, lived consequences of 30 years in the trenches, is the ultimate premium asset.
Yeah, no AI model has ever smelled the Becton sewers.
Nope. It hasn't survived the stress of a near bankruptcy. It has never sat in a tense boardroom, read the subtle body language of a terrified executive team, and changed its pitch on the fly. That lived reality cannot be automated.
So what does this all mean? If we synthesize everything we've unpacked today, AI is fundamentally an engine of abundance.
Absolute abundance.
That hands you an overwhelming abundance of options, drafts, code, and frameworks. And precisely because of that infinite abundance, human attention, human restraint, and human judgment become the critical bottlenecks.
They become the most valuable things in the room.
The goal of diving into this material isn't to walk away as a certified tech wizard who knows every prompt hack. The goal is to evolve into a critical thinker, a professional who deliberately uses AI as the invisible scaffolding to elevate their own brilliant, highly subjective, very human ideas. And again, get the book so you actually know how to build that scaffolding. Yes, highly recommended. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the author references the philosopher René Descartes. 350 years ago, he famously declared, "I think, therefore I am."
A cliff.
It was the ultimate statement of human cognitive value. But the reality of the AI age requires a philosophical update. The new reality, the new baseline for professional survival is, "I think critically, therefore I am still necessary."
That is a profound reframing. I think critically, therefore I am still necessary.
Exactly.
But before we wrap up, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final lingering thought based on a very sobering reality found in the sources.
This part is crucial.
We've spent this time talking about using AI to eliminate the painful friction of entry-level drafting, deep research, and analytical grunt work. We've talked about the immense value of turning your mid-career expertise into automated infrastructure.
Right.
But if we, as established professionals, successfully eliminate all of that friction, what happens to the next generation walking through the door?
It is a massive structural crisis waiting to detonate. Think about it. If the very tasks we used to train young professionals, the grueling hours of manual research, the terrible first drafts, the painful trial and error that taught us how to spot a bad idea,
Friction.
if all of that has been outsourced to a server farm because it's cheaper and faster, how will the young professionals of tomorrow gain their own scar tissue?
They won't.
How will they develop the deep, intuitive judgment required to eventually replace us and lead if they are never allowed to do the friction-filled work in the first place?
It is the ultimate leadership dilemma of our era. Every single time an organization proudly uses AI to quietly eliminate those messy entry-level roles in the name of efficiency, a definitive choice is being made to sever the future talent pipeline.
Wow.
You are prioritizing the speed of the output over the development of the human.
And that is exactly what you need to be mulling over as you figure out your own AI strategy. You cannot just remove the friction. You have to actively design new crucibles for your junior staff to develop their judgment.
So true.
We want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Take a moment today to pause. Step back from the exhausting cycle of doom and start deliberately building your own cognitive infrastructure.
And pick up the book.
Yes, go buy the book. Because remember, that 20-second strategy the AI just spit out onto your screen, it isn't the end of your expertise. It's simply the beginning of a brand new, highly necessary kind of fiction.